Some people are able to see God in all of their surroundings and know that God is always present in their lives. Others, not so much. I'm blessed to be one of those who sees God in everything, but that wasn't always the case. I was pretty much a social Christian. I was a good guy, raising a family, going to church, giving to the church, but I didn't take this God thing too seriously. I didn't really have a relationship with God, but God decided, as Jerry Reed so famously said in Smokey and the Bandit, I think it's time I introduce myself. That introduction came 5,000 feet over the Appalachian Mountains of eastern Kentucky in the form of an explosion in the engine compartment of my single-engine airplane. My wife Deidre and 3-year-old son Jordan were on board, and we were going down. Now, this is some of the most rugged and unforgiving landscape in the eastern U.S. There are no flat spots, only coal-filled mountains. There was, however, a 4-lane highway that we had just passed over. I need to step back in time a couple of weeks prior to when I'd flown to Florida for a week-long air show. While there, I decided to take a course on emergencies in aviation, particularly how to land on a highway in case of an emergency. They say God doesn't call the qualified, He qualifies the called. Well, little did I know that this was part of that qualification process. Well, back to that highway. Literally, I turned back to that highway. It's the only major highway for miles in any direction. 5 minutes earlier or 5 minutes later, and I would not have been able to make that highway. Quite the coincidence. Deidre, my wife, being the level-headed, never panic kind of gal that she is, announced to me that if she was going to die, she was going to be in the back seat with her son Jordan. So she climbed quickly over the seat and soon thereafter informed me that she couldn't get her seatbelt fastened. Well, in that case, I told her, get back up front and buckle up. As she was doing this, I found a relatively straight part of the highway that I thought I could land on. But God wasn't going to make this easy. He wanted to make sure that I knew what had happened. So there was a lot of traffic that day. You know what day it was? It wasn't Groundhog's Day. It wasn't President's Day. No, it was Easter Sunday. Oh, and we were over Hazard, Kentucky. Yeah, who says God doesn't have a sense of humor? Well, I was skilled enough to maneuver through the power lines, between vehicles, and things were looking really good until the road started going downhill. Well, I wasn't getting any closer to the ground, but I was getting a whole lot closer to that car in front of me. Well, at the last minute, I pulled back and stalled the plane, and made a hard but safe landing. Later, when things had finally calmed down, we were discussing the incident, and Deidre said, you know, the one thing I don't understand is why I couldn't get my seatbelt fastened when I was in the back with Jordan. Well, like I said, Jordan was 3 years old at the time. If you know anything about 3-year-olds, they tell it like it is. They're not making stuff up, not at that age. So Jordan pipes up and he says, I know why you couldn't get your seatbelt fastened, Mommy. And Deidre said, oh, why is that, Jordan? And he said, because Farley was there. Okay, now I'm wondering, who's Farley? Jordan doesn't have any imaginary friends. We don't know anyone by the name of Farley. That's not a common name. So I said, who's Farley, Jordan? And he said, Farley's an angel. Well, you know those goosebumps you just got? Yeah, I still get them too every time I tell this story. I'd like to say that I was immediately a changed man. And to some degree I was. But it's been a process. That, however, was the moment that I knew that God, Christ, the Holy Spirit, however you want to phrase it, was with me. It wasn't a coincidence that I took that safety class, nor was it a coincidence that we just happened to be over a highway where usually there were none. All of a sudden, it wasn't my great piloting skills that saved the day. My dad came to pick us up the next day and drive us home. He wanted to see where I'd landed. We couldn't find the spot because we couldn't find anywhere where you could put a plane through without hitting power lines. Power lines were everywhere. I certainly didn't move those power lines. Many people go through life wondering if God exists, and even if he does he really care enough about me to be active and intervene in my life? Well, I'm fortunate that I have zero doubt that he lives and deeply loves and cares for me. And now I see God and God's Spirit everywhere.